Alright guys, today what we're going to be looking at is the Micro XXV chainsaw again, and I know a lot of you guys are asking and wondering what to do when your oiler stops working. Well, there's a couple ways to diagnose that, and to do that you need to take the saw apart. What I've done here is identical to what I did in my fuel line video, Micro XXV fuel line repair. You can reference that if you'd like instruction on how to take the saw down to this point. The only addition to that video is I've taken the handlebar off by removing the two screws on the bottom side, here and here. Just take those off, bar will come right off. There's also one screw here, 1, 2, 3, bar will come off. And I pulled the clutch off. The clutch can stay on for a lot of this diagnosis. However, for ease of video, I have taken that off. In order to do that, I've pulled the spark plug out, and you can see tons of videos on how to do this. Put a piece of rope inside the spark plug until it stopped moving when you pull the cord, to have pressure, and then to rotate this clockwise, because it's going to be a reverse thread, and that'll come right off. And that gets us to this point. When your Micro XXV or similar Poulan chainsaw quits oiling, the first thought is that you have something clogged, and you'll look there and you'll say, okay, this looks like it's free and there's oil in there, what's going on? Well, there's no actual pump in the Micro XXV, it's built on pressure. So you have an air leak somewhere and or a check valve that does not work. In order to determine that, we're going to take this apart and see what we have. For ease of the video, I've loosened these two screws already, and I have drained the oil and taken the cap off right here. In taking that cap off, we'll take these two off here, and there will be, and I've already done this again for ease of video, there'll be a gasket on here that may be a little bit hard to pry off. Take a flathead screwdriver and work that real easily, and that'll come right off. What I have determined in pulling this off is that there is supposed to be, and I'm going to explain this in a second, there's supposed to be, I'll pull it here, there's supposed to be this piece of, looks like fuel line. This line is supposed to go from the back side of this up to where the oil comes out. I determined that this was pretty much cracked and had an air leak in it, and that's most likely what our problem is. However, there's a couple of check valves that we can test, and I'll show you how to do that to see if that could be an issue, or we have something clogged up. So what we have here, and again, I'll take this off so you guys can see it a little bit easier. It's two screws. We have a top plate, a gasket, and those are right here together, gasket and top plate. Then we have what we could call, if you wanted to, the pump assembly. There's really a check valve in here, and I'll explain that in a second. Pump assembly with oil filter, little barbed fitting here on the end, and another gasket. What we can do here is we can see if this valve is still good. If we determine that this valve is bad, we would want to replace that. And I know replacement parts can be hard to get, but we could replace those. In this segment, you can just kind of look at it, and you know that the oil has to come through here, and you know that the oil has to pull through this filter in order to get filter. So we know that the flow should be towards the interior of this saw. Meaning, if I suck on this barb, I should be able to pull air through, and we don't want oil coming back out that other way, so it should have a one-way check valve. So let's test that. I can pull air through. That tastes real good, by the way. But but I cannot push air back the other way. So we know that that valve is good. Like I said, I determined that the line was not good, and we'll talk about how to get that in here without cracking open this entire case. That can be a little bit tricky, and there's a trick to that. But in order to build up pressure, there's the second check valve, which is going to be right here. It's going to be this. And this is behind the clutch. Like I said, you can get this out without taking off the clutch, but for ease of the video, we'll take that off. So what we'll do is we're going to take that off, and there's another check valve right here that we can test. So let's do that real quick. What size is this? I can't really say. It's a 1/2 inch. Okay, so this is 1/2 inch. And so what we can do is we can pop this off, and we can take a look at it. And we can determine if this is good or not. And again, this is another piece of the puzzle here that if it's bad, oiler's not going to work, and they don't make replacement parts for, so it can be hard to come by. And we can talk about that here in a minute. Okay. So when we pull this off, what we're going to see is that there is a hole, and there should be a little screen there as well. And that's going to kind of consist of our check valve. And I honestly I had to do a little bit of research on this to determine what was going on, but this is the answer. Here's the solution. If you look really closely, there's a screen. Let's see if that's going to work. Is that going to focus? There's a screen there. And this screen consists of a check valve that's going to allow this to pull air through this hole in the side. See this hole? To build up pressure as the saw builds up compression. It's going to build up pressure and be able to force oil through this pump. It picks it up. This is the bottom side of the pump. It picks it up through here, through this filter, through the barbed fitting, through the hose, and then out the hole. So let's see if this is good. In this case, I can push and pull air. That's not a good sign. I want to, in this case, be able to pull air and not push air. So I know this check valve is bad. So it looks like I had 2 issues. So now I have what a lot of people may have, the problem where I have to develop a check valve or find a replacement check valve that's good for this application. So I have been able to locate this part, okay, and fortunately I've done that. Otherwise, you know, you have to build one, and I don't know if there's a video on it, but there's forums online that'll tell you how to build something as a one-way check valve to fit this application. So you say, well, okay, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this on video, but there's also a hole inside here. There's no way you're going to be able to see that. There's a hole right about where my finger is. That is where the airflow goes through. And that's what we're talking about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that replacement part, and I'll be right back here in 1 second. Alright guys, we're back with you. I went and located that part, like I said, that I had from a replacement unit that was known to have a good oiler. Okay. Like I said, these parts are no longer available. There'll be a lot of forums that say that you can get them from certain websites in Canada, from Sears, you know, the Husqvarna dealership, the Poulan dealership. They don't make it anymore. So unless somebody has a new old stock one on the shelf, you're not going to be able to find this check valve. Same goes with the pump that we were talking about that came right off of here. So, like I said, I've located one. That's probably the easiest thing to do without rebuilding something or rigging something that's going to fit into that hole. It has that same screen filter. Let's see if I can get that to focus. Same screen filter. Put a new washer, rubber washer here. And like I said, it's got that hole in the side that's going to allow airflow one direction. Right here on the side, see the hole. On this one, unlike here's the old one here. The old one, I'm able to pull and push air. Okay, that's not what we want. That means the valve inside's bad. This one, I'm able to only pull air. Well, once I move the washer from off the hole, I can pull air, meaning, to explain the system again, the system is going to be able to draw air, push air through, build up pressure through the hole as it pulses, build enough pressure up to push oil from the tank through, up through the bottom of our pump, through the filter, back through the small hole, one way again, through the barb fitting, through the small piece of hose, which like I said was cracked on my unit, and out the oil hole. And again, that's how the oiler works on this unit, just from pressure. The other issue, like I said, talking about air leaks, could be that you could have simply a bad gasket on your oil cap. Think about this, if you have air that's leaking out, it's like trying to hold air inside a tire. It's just going to come out, it's not going to stay in there, there's no pressure built up. You need that pressure to push it out this small hole. And so those are your air leaks. Like I said, we're going to try to not split this case apart. People could think, oh, there's a bad gasket in the case itself. Well, these units here specifically don't have gaskets between them. It's glued together. That could be an issue as well. I'm going to show you a trick to get that done. First off, let's put in the small piece, and I've already determined that the hole inside here is clear. This is all clean. You're going to want to do that. Like I said, there's a small hole here, impulse hole, that's going to allow that airflow. So we're going to screw this in, and I'll get this all tightened up. And I have not determined if the hole needs to line up or not. We'll get to that. It's kind of trial and error here for me, but this should make it work again. Like I said, I quit having oil out of this and said, well, what's the issue? And unfortunately on these, the unit itself is so inexpensive to buy that sometimes it's better to buy a unit for parts and take those parts off of it than to try to locate the parts themselves. Like I said, I only paid $20 for this entire chainsaw, and you could spend $20 or $30 just trying to find these check valves because they're discontinued. So what I'll do is I'll get this back on here. I'll come back to you guys and we'll talk about how to do the pump and how to get that line back on here, back on a small barb fitting that's on the inside of there. And again, I don't have big hands, but my hands don't fit in there. I can barely feel that there is a barb fitting. So how do we get that on there without a lot of frustration? I'll show you a little trick. So we'll be back to you, and hold on tight. Alright, so we talked about the trick to stick the pump back in. Here's the trick. As you can see, I've got this kind of rigged up how it'll go into the machine here. As you can see, barb fitting. I've got a new length of hose, and here's the trick. Because it's almost impossible to thread the end of this in here up and onto the barb fitting, small barb fitting that goes on the back of this hole where the oil comes out, without splitting this case apart. On the end of this line, see what I did there? Got a little piece of wire, it's almost like a paperclip type wire, project wire that I had laying around, and I cut that and stuck it through there. And now we'll be able to stick this entire piece, and I'm going to do this in reverse so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But we can stick this all in. The pump's going to go in here. Everything's going to go inside the hole in here. But this is rigid enough for when we come in through the back side that it's going to fit through this hole. And we can pull the whole thing through, pull it tight, snip this off, and we'll be good to go. So what we'll do is I'm going to kind of get this all assembled and put back together. I'm not going to bore you with me fiddling around with that, but that's how you're going to do it. So this is going to go in, and like I said before, there is make sure that you put that gasket back on ready to go, because once you get this all together, you don't want to take it all apart again. And important note, Also remember that on this pump, there's a part that's exposed that exposes this filter that goes down. So this side here is going to go on the downward portion of the saw, so it can pick up oil while it's low. So what we'll do is we'll get that kind of in there. I'm just going to kind of plant this all the way through. Like I said, I have the cap taken off on the other side. And we'll come back to you, but you can kind of see what I'm getting at here. And before we get too far, let's push this onto the barb fitting so it's all the way on there. Really nice, so we don't have to fiddle with it later. Okay, so that's on there nice and tight, as you can see. Okay, filter's kind of back in there. You can put this in at the later point if you want to get your fingers in here so you're not smashing that down, if that's to your benefit. Get this gasket back and ready to go, and like I said, we should kind of be ready to go and put this together. Like I said, I was thinking about this for quite a while. How am I going to do this? I really didn't want to unglue the whole thing and take the entire saw apart, especially if I wasn't sure I was going to be able to find parts or what I was going to be able to do, and it's like finding these parts is almost near to impossible, so anything you can do to help yourself out is of benefit. So we're going to get that in. And I think just so I have a little bit of room to work with, I'm not going to stick this all the way in until I thread the needle back through this hole. And we will see if I can do that on camera here real quick. Like I said, there's a small barbed fitting up in there. Yeah, actually that's going to be easier. So we'll pull this out. And we're going to see if we can get that up and through. And honestly, I think what we'll do is we'll actually take, just to make this even a little bit easier, is I think we're going to take maybe we won't. Okay, well, we'll just see if I can get this in here this way really quickly. And with my finger, yeah, I think that's what we'll do. So I think what we'll do, just to get this easier, is we're actually going to put this cap on last, so I can come in through it from the other side here, from the oil fill side, on this side of the saw. I think that'll just be a little bit easier, be more of a direct approach. So let me pull that back off and we'll come back to you. So I changed it up a little bit. I tried to pull that line with that wire that we were talking about, but it broke off. So what I did is I took the entire line off, recut the end so there's no hole in it. Here's the line right here. And what I did was I cut it flush on the end, cut it flush on the end. I stuck the wire straight through the hole from the outside where the oil hole is. So what I did was, if you can see this here, I just put this, and like I said, this is kind of like paperclip wire, real thin and long. I just stuck it into the outlet hole, followed it through to the other side, pushed it all the way through. And my idea is, we're going to try this out now, my idea is that now, since this is long and I can hold it on both ends, I can slide this wire, and it's a perfect guide to line it right up with where it needs to go on the barb fitting on the inside of this saw. So what I'm going to do is just push this, snake this all the way up there and try to push it on. So give me a couple of minutes, I'll try that out and let you know how that goes. I'll be right back with you. Alright guys, a little bit different scene here. Figured out what my problem was in trying to pull that new oil line through. As you can see, oil line is going to be, tip of it's going to be right here. We're going to pull that out and put the the oil filter in. here in a second. I was trying to pull it through with that piece of wire, and I didn't realize that the hole up here, I was thinking there was a barbed fitting on the other end of this, but this is actually just the line sticking out the top side. As you can see, I didn't cut it all the way flush yet. And so the old piece wasn't a barbed fitting that I was feeling, it was an old piece of line. So what I had to do was, I just took a pick, just like a small pick, screwdriver, something like that, and I put it into the, and this is the new one, but I put it into the old one and I just kind of pried and dug it out. That opened up this whole hole, then I was able to pull the new one in, no problem. So no worries, just a little bit, I don't know, a little bit of difficulty there, but not really a problem at this point. At this point, all we need to do left is put the new or replaced, or as you can see, I have two, filter with the two gaskets, and we're going to try to reuse these gaskets. We'll see if they seal or not. If not, we can always use some RTV silicone and seal that up, or cut a new gasket, order a new gasket. Put that in here, we should be able to fire this thing up, and that's how you're going to do the oil replacement. As you can see, I have the clutch on here. I did wind up cutting a new gasket, just a little bit thicker. The other one that I had that was working was just really brittle, so it's not perfectly round, but it should work. Okay, and we'll get back to you. Okay, we have everything back together other than the side plate and the bar of the chain. At this point, probably best just to fill it up with oil and gas and give it a start, let it run, come to temperature. And usually when you get it warm, if you just were to fill this up on the reservoir side over here right now, it would probably hold oil, no problem. But once it warms up, if you have a gasket issue, you're going to get a leak right here. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I just said. I'm going to fill this with oil, fill this with gas and oil. We'll start it up, and we will see if we have a leak. If not, we're good. If we do, then we'll have to take this back apart, either put some silicone, or we will put some or cut a new gasket. So that's what's next. I don't know if you can see what I was pointing at, but you can see that the oil is coming right out of here, which is what you want to oil your chain. Dripping down. Since we don't have a bar on here, it's dripping straight down past this, and we don't have anything here. This is dry, which is what you want to see. So that's a successful oil pump, pressurized pump replacement on a Poulan Micro XXV. I know previously on my video about the fuel line repair, I denoted that this was 25 cc. I was corrected by a subscriber, and it does say under here that it is 33 cubic centimeters, so 33 cc's. So I'd like to thank that person as well as correct myself. That is what you do. We'll put the bar and chain back on, and we're ready to cut.